Okay. Thank you, Director of Communications, the Director for Political Affairs, my brothers and sisters from the media. Good afternoon or evening. I'm pleased to be here sitting before you to address you on the theme of the current year of human rights, with a special focus on the rights of women. I would, of course, begin by reminding you that the year had been launched in January in Addis Ababa, and even prior to the launching of the year in January, the Human Rights, the African Union Commission, along with all the organs of the Union that have a shared mandate on human rights, had come together last year in Arusha in 2015 to prepare for this current year. And in doing that, we also had discussions with the ambassadors in Addis Ababa. These are the permanent representatives. This is the Permanent Representatives Committee. And then we adopted what we call the AU Project 2016. The Project 2016 demonstrates African Union commitment to entrenching a culture of human rights on the African continent. It's also a vivid illustration of our leaders' commitment to gender equality and women's empowerment. Let me also seize this opportunity to remind you that 2015 was also the year of women empowerment towards our Agenda 2063. So it's another opportunity for the continent to again focus on women and women's rights. You may ask me how we view the year, the Project 2016. First, for us, it's an opportunity to affirm to all and sundry that human rights and the rights of women in particular are a collective responsibility of all in Africa. It's also an opportunity for us to commit ourselves to enhancing efforts aimed at entrenching and reinforcing deeper understanding of the culture of human and people's rights, in particular the rights of women, and their promotion and popularization amongst the African peoples. We are hoping that if, with the consent of this summit, that this year and the next coming years, next 10 years shall be declared as the Human and People's Rights Decade in Africa. We believe that 1 year alone is not sufficient for us to make any remarkable change or improvement on the human rights profile of the continent. We also see it as an opportunity for us to recommit ourselves to expedite the ratification, domestication, and implementation of all human and people's rights instruments, and in particular, the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, popularly known as the Maputo Protocol. We are also using this opportunity to reiterate our unflinching determination to promote and protect human and people's rights and all basic freedoms in Africa. Right to speech, right to freedom of association, and the need for the consolidation and the full implementation of human and people's rights instruments and relevant national laws and policies, as well as decisions and recommendations made by the African Union organs with a human rights mandate. It's also an opportunity for us to continue to eliminate all kinds of violence and discrimination against women, and to ensure the protection of the rights of women and girls as stipulated in the Maputo Protocol and the international declarations and conventions, as well as empowering women by granting them their full rights. It's also an opportunity for us to promote the right to development, including the right to water, right to education, right to sanitation, right to health, shelter. And these basic rights, we see them as inalienable human and people's rights, by virtue of which every human person and all peoples are entitled to participate in, contribute to, and enjoy economic, social, cultural, and political development in which all rights and fundamental freedoms can be fully realized. I will try to be brief, but I will conclude by saying that this year, from the previous year to the current year, we have succeeded in order to improve on our human rights strategy to deploy human rights observation missions. We currently have a mission in Burundi, the Central African Republic, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Somalia and South Sudan. The mandate of these human rights observers is to document and report on human rights violations that they find on the ground. They are also mandated to support the capacity building of national mechanisms to promote and protect human and people's rights. The African Union has also deployed, currently, I've mentioned Burundi. We currently have about 50 in Burundi, and we are trying to top up the number to 100 as soon as we increase our funding. Another specific outcome of the year is also to finalize the African Union policy framework on transitional justice for countries emerging out of conflict. The policy framework is provide us the platform to ensure justice and accountability and facilitate the rebuilding of human rights mechanisms at the national level. Also, the African Union Commission is leading the efforts to establish the African Human Rights Memorial in Addis Ababa within the premises of the African Union Commission in memory of the victims of human rights violation on the entire African continent. Last but not the least, I wish to call on our brothers and sisters from the African media to work closely with the African Union Commission and all African Union organs with a human rights mandate to popularize the African Union human rights instruments and mechanisms and raise awareness of their existence. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Excellency, and thank you for that very elaborate presentation on the theme of the year, among other activities under your department. I believe all the media who are here and those who are outside, this is the opportunity to even ask the questions you want for your interviews. Because the commissioners, as you know, they're busy with the Executive Council. We just have to sneak them out of the room to come and address you on press conferences so that you can have some content rather than keeping you idle. Now, I open the floor to questions. And if you have questions, present yourself and introduce your question. I can see 3 hands. Please, the mic. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Ethan. I work for the New Times Rwanda. Madam Commissioner, I want to ask you about the theme of the year on human rights, but with specific focus on women empowerment. And I want to look at the issues of human rights across Africa, the issues of insecurity, right from the north to the south of Africa, through east to west. We have a lot of insecurities. We have people dying, innocent people dying each and every day in Burundi, South Sudan. We have 200 kids from Nigeria who were abducted by Boko Haram, and we don't know where their whereabouts. And we're wondering, was this the right theme of the year, to focus on women empowerment rather than the issues that actually merit Africa, especially on insecurities? I'm a he for she, and I support the idea of empowering women, but I'm wondering if it was the right idea to talk about women empowerment when we had bigger issues than just that. Thank you.
Thank you. We got you. The next person is just right in front, lady, and then.
Good evening. My name is Shade Folarin from News Agency of Nigeria. Can I sit? Okay. The theme of the summit is very apt for me, but I want to ask: is it, or rather, how are we going to push the issue of human rights, considering that Africa is a continent where, like in every region, we have issues of violations and all of that because of one form of conflict or the other. Also, there's been heated arguments about African countries wanting to pull out of the International Criminal Court. We don't have a court of our own, and we want to pull out of the one that is in existence. Not that they don't have issues of their own, or rather, we don't have issues with the courts. But don't you think that if we pull out and that we don't have places where we can address human rights violations, there will be a problem? You also said that there is a mandate, or rather the mandate you have in some of these countries is to document human rights violations found on ground. And when you document them, what are we going to do about them? Are we just going to let them go, or what do we do to address those issues? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ahmed Adan, BBC Africa. And my first question is, recently African Ugandan soldiers have crossed from South Sudan's border inside South Sudan before hours. But Salva Kiir said within 1 hour before, no African soldier can dare to enter or to intervene their country. So what is the role of African Union if Salva Kiir is reluctant to allow an African Union peacekeepers to enter inside South Sudan when we know what's happening inside that country? My second question is Somalia, you have mentioned, and we know gender equality is not implemented in Somalia. It is the year of elections. Also, African Union peacekeepers in Somalia were accused of violating human rights issues inside Somalia. And so what is the role of African Union when it comes into gender equality, the year of elections in Somalia, and also the human rights issues in Somalia? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's first give the opportunity to the Commissioner to address those three questions. So if there are others, you get ready. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. The first question from the media, Rwanda media, on the theme. I think you didn't read the theme very well. The theme of the year is the year of human rights. Actually, when I say our organs, I'm referring to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights in Banjul, the African Court in Arusha, first came to the Union in 2014 to request for 2016 to be declared as the year of human rights. They only requested for it to be declared as the year of human rights. However, in the discussion among the Permanent Representatives Committee, the distinguished representative of Rwanda, coincidentally, at that time, requested that we add the special focus on women. So basically, the year is the year of human rights. You asked me what we are doing. People are dying in Africa, which is very true. We lost a parliamentarian yesterday in Burundi. The conflict in South Sudan recently, hundreds of lives were lost recently. The Chibok girls in Nigeria, is true, are still missing. The AU has several mechanisms for addressing conflicts, but chiefly the chief organ of the union that is responsible for human rights, for conflict resolution and addressing peace and security issues on the continent is the African Union Peace and Security Council. And I would dovetail the next question from the news agency of Nigeria that asked me that what do we do with the data, with the information that we get from these human rights reports. usually the human rights observers, the African Commission in Banjul, the Department of Political Affairs, we brief the African Union Peace and Security Council periodically. Whenever reports are ready, we go and brief the Peace and Security Council. The Peace and Security Council is a 15-member body, representative of the entire continent, and they work almost on daily basis. So it's also a policy organ because it can take decisions. So this is one way, but the Commission and now the Summit, the Executive Council is also currently looking at some of these issues. And I assure you that by the time that we are done with this summit, there would be clear course of actions to address this conflict, especially the one that are erupting, like the case of South Sudan and the case of Burundi. I think I have addressed both NAN and Rwanda. The question from BBC Africa on the issue of the Ugandan soldiers crossing over to South Sudan. You know, there's the issue of sovereignty. Most countries guard their sovereignty strongly. You may recall, even with the crisis in Burundi, there was a time that the PSC decided to send a protection mission to Burundi, but the Burundian authorities were very sensitive to the mission, and up till now the mission has been deployed. But we are pleased that at least they have admitted the human rights observers. But the dialogue continues, the facilitation and the mediation efforts in all these conflicts that you've mentioned. There are special envoys, there are special mediation processes going on almost on daily basis, even in some of the countries that you have not mentioned. The case of Somalia and the violation, alleged violation by our troops, the AMISOM troops, this is under investigation. When we received the report, we took the report seriously, and the matter is being investigated. And I assure you that all soldiers found wanting would be issued the appropriate disciplinary measure.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Let's take the next rounds of questions. I can see already one hand. Can we have the microphone? Any other question in the room for the Commissioner? Okay.
Merci Madame, je m'appelle Badi Banga, je suis journaliste de Mama Radio en République démocratique du Congo. 3 questions précises. La première, quel bilan dressez-vous globalement de la situation des droits de l'homme en Afrique? Certaines langues disent que la situation des droits de l'homme va mal sous l'indifférence de l'Union africaine. Qu'en dites-vous? Une deuxième question, c'est celle de savoir, beaucoup de conventions et déclarations sur les droits de l'homme existent, et vous l'avez fait remarquer dans vos propos. Maintenant, comment expliquer cette flambée de violence basée sur le genre, malgré cet arsenal juridique qui prône l'égalité des sexes, ou si vous voulez, l'équité du genre? Dernière question. À votre avis, quels sont les succès du protocole de Maputo? Est-ce que vous en êtes fiers, à vrai dire? Merci.
Thank you very much for the French question. Any other?
This is a heavily loaded question. Can I?
Okay, let's get the Commissioner to answer.
Yeah, if I get you right, I'm Anglophone, so listen to me carefully if I've gotten you right. The first question is you want me to evaluate the human rights situation on the continent. And the second one, you are asking me, despite the fact that we have so many treaties, conventions, charters, still the situation, there are many conflicts on the continent. And then the third one, you want me to assess how well is the Maputo Protocol. Did I get you right? Thank you. On the human rights situation of the continent, we have just listened to the chief organ that is in charge of the human rights on the continent is the African Commission on Human and People's Rights in Banjul, and it has just briefed the summit, and it will publish its reports. It has recorded several positive achievements in terms of human rights, and where now our citizens, for example, they can directly take their cases to Banjul, and Banjul, even those countries that have not made the declaration to the court in Arusha, can indirectly case the causes of individuals and NGOs to the court in Arusha. This are I'm just giving you this as an example, as a positive development in the on the continent. In many cases, the Commission in Banjul has written letters of urgent appeal directly to the leaders on the continent, seeking for clarifications based on the requests of African citizens and civil society directly to the Commission in Banjul. Almost all our member states now have national human rights institutions. We have the human rights strategy for Africa. Maybe I would give Dr. Salah 2 minutes to speak on the human rights strategy. He's more familiar with it than me. It's his daily business. So I assure you that with the human rights situation, yes, there are areas of concern, but there are areas of positive development from the report that we received from Banjul. You said on the many treaties, charters, conventions, or whatever you call them, that we have protocols that we have on human rights, but yet the situation is not optimum. All I would say to you is that is why we have the theme for the year, is to ensure implementation, domestication, but also monitoring and evaluation of how well these mechanisms are working. And I told you this activity will not just stop this year. We are going to launch a decade of human rights. So it's something that we'll continue to do for the next 10 years, God willing. The protocol, I think in 2013 or 2014, Salah, we did the 10th anniversary of the Maputo Protocol. Currently, there are about 36 ratifications of the Maputo Protocol. So in terms of ratification, I believe that the protocol is doing well. But whether that one is showing in terms of women empowerment, women's rights, we had the gender scorecard in 2015. Even in the current summit, we shall again share the gender scorecard. Many countries, in terms of positions of decision-making, women are doing better, but there's still room for improvement. Why it's important to get women into decision-making positions. It's only when you get women there. They don't have to be presidents. They may not necessarily have to be ministers. But if, for example, you get a woman that's a director in a water ministry, a woman really feels the pinch of the importance of the family having water, and we would expect more commitment from that table. So it's very important that, yes, women should be there, but we should also ensure that, of course, with merit, they get into positions of decision-making. I think I have made an attempt to respond to you. I thank you.
Do we invite Ambassador Salah to address the issue, as the Commissioner said?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Just the human rights strategy, please.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you, Esther, Director. Briefly, the Human Rights Strategy for Africa was adopted by the AU organs with a human rights mandate in 2011 after an intensive survey and studies that took place prior to the adoption of the strategy, with one major or main objective to strengthen and enhance the effectiveness of the African human and people's rights system, and to make it more stronger. The strategy meant also to enhance the capacity of the organs that are in charge of the promotion and protection of human and people's rights in Africa, and also to work closely with our member states to expedite the ratification of the human rights instruments, and also to make sure that the instruments are implemented at the national level. The strategy, when it was adopted in 2011, came with an action plan for 5 years, and the action plan is coming to an end by the end of this year. But from our observation that many positive developments have been seen and also monitored on the ground, when the strategy was adopted, at that time we had only 11 national human rights commissions in our member states. Today we have 43 national human rights commissions. Among them, 37 meets the standards indicated in the Paris Principles. And that means that there's more space now available for the work of the National Human Rights Commissions at the national level to promote and protect human and people's rights. In addition to that, we are making sure that on a regular basis, annual basis, there's a stronger relationship and working relationship between the National Human Rights Commissions at the national level and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights in Banjul, by ensuring the participation of the National Human Rights Commissions in the sessions of the Banjul Commission. Last but not least, let me say that in addition to the establishment and development of the National Human Rights Commissions, the strategy also advanced, in fact, the awareness raising and promoted to a large extent the instruments, human rights instruments, and also the mechanisms at the national level. Of course, we don't expect that changes will happen overnight and also be completed overnight. But also, I think we should also admit the fact that the adoption of the Human Rights Strategy for Africa contributed to the advancement of the protection and promotion of human rights in Africa. I thank you, Excellency.
Thank you, Ambassador Salah. Do we have any other question in the room? Yes, I can see 3. Let's start from the back. Please. Introduce yourself, your media organ, and the question, please.
I'm the journalist Li Yan from the China Xinhua News Agency, and I have a question about the empowerment of women. I want to know, for the empowerment of African women, what are the biggest challenges we are facing now? And do we have any measures to take to encounter these challenges? Thank you.
Pass on the mic to your colleague here. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kaitesi from Nation Media Group. My question is about militant groups in the continent. We have various militant groups in Africa. We have the FDLR, we have Al-Shabaab, but we do not see much of African Union action towards militant groups, yet these groups commit a lot of human rights violations. In fact, what we saw recently is that AMISOM, which was fighting the Al-Shabaab in Somalia, will slowly be withdrawn, I think, in about 2 years' time. So what is your take on militant groups on the continent and the human rights violations that they commit? Thank you.
Where are you from?
Did you introduce yourself?
Kaitesi from Nation Media Group.
Nation Media Group. Bring the mic in front, please.
I had 2 questions, but one was asked. The other one, still I didn't understand what is the take of African Union when it comes to South Sudan. Still Kir is reluctant. So African Union will watch until South Sudanese kill themselves, and will you stay outside and saying we are just looking at their sovereignty? Thank you.
Yes, BBC Africa, thank you. Any other question before we close this round of questions? Okay, I'll give the floor to the Excellency to answer the questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. The one on the empowerment of women, I'm donating to the Director of Political Affairs. I want you to hear his voice. It's a teamwork. On the militant groups that you mentioned, FDLR, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, they are all over the continent. All I would say to you is in 2013, when we had our Golden Jubilee, our leaders had a solemn declaration. And that solemn declaration is to silence the guns by 2020. There's no way. All that we are putting forward, whether it's our Agenda 2063 or the 2030 agenda or whatever development agenda that we have out there, until we are able to contain these militant groups and also fight terrorism, ensure peace and stability on the continent, they would remain an illusion to us. I told you about our African Union Peace and Security Council working night and day to ensure that the guns are silenced on the continent. I know 2020 is not far away from now. It's like 4 years away. But we have a target, and we are working hard to ensure that there's peace on the African continent. It could have been worse if not for some of the activities and the actions that have been carried out. On South Sudan, my brother, yesterday there was a meeting, the day before yesterday there was a meeting on South Sudan. Yesterday the PSC met again. South Sudan was on the agenda. And then the summit, 17th, 18th, our leaders are arriving on Friday. The summit, 17th, 18th July. South Sudan is top on the agenda. Even prior to the summit, we have a special envoy, President Konare, that is working hard. I told you we have the human rights observers on the ground. It's very unfortunate. In fact, the case of South Sudan is a very unfortunate case for the continent because this is the youngest sovereign nation on the African continent, rich in terms of national endowment, very trim population, and unfortunately now, as they are supposed to be celebrating their 5th anniversary as a nation, there's still conflict going on, but we'll never give up and we'll continue to work hard with the international community to ensure peace in South Sudan. So I hand over to the director to address you on women empowerment, the China News Agency. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. On the question of women's empowerment, I think even before we tackle directly the challenges, we also need to recognize the achievements that the continent is making. Because as we celebrate this year of human rights, with special focus on the rights of women, we also need to recognize the milestones that we are registering. In this regard, I just want to refer to one important achievement. Africa today has the largest number of women representation in parliaments. That's the big achievement. And in fact, this country where we are is the leader, not only of the continent, but of the world, with 64% in the legislature. And we have quite a number of other countries that actually are making good progress, including Senegal, Seychelles, South Africa, Mozambique, Algeria, quite a number of them. So let's recognize that as a major achievement. Now, once we have recognized that achievement, yes, now I agree with you, there are challenges that still remain. And for example, in terms of advancing what the Commissioner was talking about as socio-economic rights, the right to development of our people, women still suffer a lot of a disadvantage in terms of enjoying those socio-economic rights, right to health, right to education, security. She was just mentioning, for example, the killing yesterday of a female former former minister in Burundi. A very brutal assassination yesterday. But now the challenges that we then have to address in dealing with the problem is to deal with to eradicate the culture or ideology of patriarchy, because it's the mindset, patriarchy. Second, to ensure that institutions that are set up in our countries are sensitive to gender equality. And finally, it's also all about, and this is my final point, really, for all this to work, it's all about leadership. All about these institutions being led by people that are visionary, that also are sensitive to gender equality as a principle. So I think that's how at AU we approach the whole question of the challenges on women's empowerment and making sure that during this year of human rights with a special focus on the rights of women, we're going to also advocate for this kind of changes. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are all satisfied, and this has brought us to the end of the press conference. We want to thank you for attending this press conference. Let me just remind you the press conferences of tomorrow. Take this one. Press conference for tomorrow in the morning at 11 o'clock. Please be informed that His Excellency, Mr. Erastus Mwencha, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, will be addressing you on institutional transformation and integration. And the next press conference will be at 12:30, where you'll have the Director for Gender, who will be Mrs. Mahawa Kaba-Wheeler, who will be talking to you about AU Women Gender and Development Directorate working towards achieving women's rights in Africa, progress and plans ahead. The next conference at 3 o'clock will be His Excellency Dr. Elham Mahmoud Ibrahim, Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy, and she will be addressing you on the issue of infrastructure and its contribution to human rights and women's rights. The last press conference of the day tomorrow will be from His Excellency Dr. Mustafa Siddiqui Kaloko, Commissioner for Social Affairs, who will be talking to you about migration, African Center for Disease Control, end of child marriage in Africa, and African Volunteers Health Corps. As a part of the efforts of the Department of Political Affairs and to strengthen its working relationship with African civil society organization, there will be a signing ceremony of an MOU immediately after this press conference in this room between the department, can I have the information, right? The Department of Political Affairs and
the African Governance Institute.
And the African Government Institute.
African Governance Institute.
The Department of Political Affairs will be represented by the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Her Excellency Aisha Abdullahi, and the Executive Director of the AGI, His Excellency Dr. Abdullahi Jane. You are also invited to cover this event. I want to thank the Director, Kabele, to be here. I want to thank Ambassador Salah, and I want to thank Commissioner Abdullahi. Thank you for coming. So are we proceeding to this signing of MOU now?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're invited to cover, and please, the live stream team, don't disconnect your equipment. We count on you to also cover this very memorable event. Yeah.
Commissioner, I hope you let me say a few words.
Okay, before the signing ceremony, I'm inviting His Excellency Abdullahi Jane, who will introduce and tell us more about what this event is all about. The floor is yours, Excellency.
Madam, thank you very much. Madam Commissioner, Director, my friend, I am very happy to be here to sign this MOU with the Department of Political Affairs under the leadership of Commissioner Abdullahi. This is self-explanatory, so I don't have to go into it. You know, AGI is a Pan-African institution which is promoting governance in the continent, a very strong partner with the African Union. We have been partners for a long time, and we wanted to capture and concretize this partnership within the framework of an MOU, which spells out what we do and what our relationship would be. But on this occasion, why I take the floor is really to pay homage to the Commissioner. I think, as I said, we have been with the African Union for quite a while, but it's under her leadership that we have promoted this relationship. And this because of her faith and belief in governance. And we've seen this. I don't want to belabor it, but I think she has been a strong voice for leadership, governance in this continent. She has been a strong voice for the adoption of the appropriate instruments at the level of the African Union to promote governance in this continent. And not only adopting the instruments, but ratifying them and holding the feet of the fire of national authorities to make sure that we start implementing this. And this is an area which is sensitive, which is difficult, which is to discuss it poses also a problem. So it takes a committed, it takes a brave, it takes a dedicated individual to be able to do that. So, and it is in this respect that really I want to pay homage to Commissioner Aisha Abdullahi, really, for all the efforts that she has put into this. And I'm very happy that we have a possibility now of signing this MOU, which I think is just simply putting in a legal framework what we have been doing all the time. We look forward to really working very closely with the African Union because I think, in the area of governance, we leave the leadership to the African Union. It has the political legitimacy to do this, but they need partners. And we want to commit the African Governance Institute to really supporting, accompanying this tremendous task that the AU is participating. I think I just wanted to say this at the beginning of signing of this MOU, which I'm very honored to be signing with my friend and my sister and my colleague, this great African lady here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Maybe the Commissioner will want to just respond to your very memorable and strong compliment on her behalf.
I thank you, Dr. Abdullahi Jani, for your kind comments. But also, let me remind all of us that Dr. Jani wears several hats. Dr. Jani is the former Executive Secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA. He's currently a director of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. So talking about governance and the promotion of governance on the African continent, the name Mo Ibrahim is a household name, and his pillars are people like Dr. Jani that move all over the continent to ensure that the quality of governance on the African continent has improved. Since I came on board as the Commissioner for Political Affairs, we've been working closely with Dr. Jani. He has helped me in several ways, mentor, supporter, promoter, in every way, and I really appreciate him, and I am really glad that finally we are signing this MOU to give us a legal framework of continuing with our activities with the African Governance Institute in Dakar in a legal fashion. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Director. Okay, let's proceed to the signing. This is a very high moment. Please, let's focus and have the best pictures. And I want to thank the live stream team to make sure that we have this worldwide. It's a very important event. We'll now exchange the files. We'll proceed to the exchange of files between Her Excellency Dr. Aisha Abdullahi, Commissioner for Political Affairs, and His Excellency Abdullahi Jani. Yeah, exchange of files. Let's capture this very important moment, please. They can stand and exchange the files, say handshake. Thank you very much, dear Excellencies. Thank you. And this has really brought us now to the end of our press conference. We want to thank everyone who has been here today. We want to thank those listeners and audience who are listening and following us through our live stream team, very highest qualified team of live stream technicians. I want to thank you for live streaming live. And we want to thank the panelists and excellencies for this conference. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
If people want one-on-one interview, I can see the room turning around. Please, this is the moment. Because if they leave this room, you will not find them again.